Hey guys, we've recently partnered with the social media platform Go Wild to combat mainstream social media censorship. If you're tired of having your hunting and outdoor posts taken down and flagged, be sure to check out Go Wild, which was built by outdoorsmen and women just like you. Go Wild is a free social community. Not only are your photos not censored, but they are also encouraged on Go Wild. Go Wild gives you points for things like sharing your trophies, gear reviews, and inviting friends. As you earn more points, you unlock awesome rewards such as gift cards, free swag, knives, and huge discounts on brands like Garmin and Vortex. Oh, and if you create a free account, you can unlock $10 just for trying it out. Use code HTW to receive 10% off your order today. Download Go Wild at gowild.com or in the App Store.
To hunt the wild, to hunt the wild, gonna hunt the wild.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Hunt the Wild podcast. I'm your host, Adam Bowlds, and today I got a little bit of a different show. I'm joined with my wife, Taylor, and we're going to do something a little bit different than normal. We're actually recording. We're at home, but we're recording in different rooms because I don't have the setup to kind of record together and video everything. And I like to put it on YouTube and all that stuff too. So if the connection or the video looks weird, it's because we're both trying to connect to StreamYard. So I apologize for that. But Taylor's kind of wrote up some questions, and I've looked at them a little bit, but not a whole lot. And she may have some that she's going to throw in there randomly. I'm not sure, but I'm going to kind of be the guest on my own show today. And she's going to kind of pick my brain. We thought it might be a good idea or kind of fun for you guys to kind of get to know me, because a lot of times I don't get to tell kind of what I got going on. It's more of an interview with the other guests. So we're going to talk about kind of my season and some different things. So yeah, most of you know me, unless this is the first episode that you've tuned into, but I'm Adam Bowlds. I'm the host of the podcast, and this is my wife, Taylor, and we have a son, Boone. I'm 28 years old, getting ready to be 29, actually, the big 29, in a couple weeks. And we live in southern Indiana, not too far from Kentucky, maybe 20 minutes or so, and probably 30 minutes or so from Illinois. We're right on the Ohio River. Good deer hunting down here. But yeah, that's a little bit about me, and I'm gonna let Taylor kind of take over, and she's gonna interview me and ask the questions, and I'm gonna try to give my best answers. I'm not really used to being on the other side of this, so if I start stumbling my words or not making a whole lot of sense, I'm sorry about that. But I'm gonna try to get through it, and hopefully you guys learn a little bit about me and kind of why I started this show. And yeah, so Taylor, you can kind of take over, just kind of introduce yourself, and then we'll just roll into it. Just do the best you can.
Hi, everyone. I'm Taylor, of course. I'm Adam's wife. A little bit about myself. I'm a new mom and a dental assistant. But as far as hunting, I am pretty new-ish to the hunting world. I got into it. I did it a little bit as a kid and went with my parents, but also really got into it more whenever I met Adam, and kind of have learned a lot since then from him. But to dive right into questions, I am curious, and I think everyone else would be, if we went back from the very beginning, how did you get into hunting? Did someone show you around? Did you kind of learn on your own? How did it work?
So I got into hunting through my dad. My mom never did hunt, but my dad did. My one of my grandpas did, but I never really went with him. My dad started taking me hunting when I was a kid. I'd probably say I was 3 or 4. Started taking me out fishing and squirrel hunting and stuff. But squirrel hunting was definitely my introduction to it. I didn't do a whole lot of deer hunting until I got older. Probably, I would say maybe 8, 9, 10 years old. But yeah, just kind of going squirrel hunting with my dad. Maybe not necessarily shooting when I first went, but just kind of going with him and following along and kind of learning the ropes, because when you first start, you kind of don't really know what's going on. So yeah, he'd take me to the woods with him, and we look for squirrels. I don't remember shooting a whole lot when I was younger. I was probably super loud in the woods and probably cried and screamed and said I was hungry. I don't really remember, but yeah, squirrel hunting. That's probably why I'm addicted to it now, as you know.
Is there one specific like first memory or one like super memorable experience that you had as a kid or just in general with your dad or any family members?
So I guess looking back, I do have a memory of maybe no, it must have not been my first squirrel hunt, but I remember I was probably, yeah, it wasn't my first squirrel hunt. I was probably 7 years old, if I was to guess, and I was with my dad, um, and we're squirrel hunting, and my brother was with us, but my brother wasn't actually sitting with us. I can't recall if he was somewhere else in the woods or if he was only like 100 yards away or what. But as you know, when you're squirrel hunting, it's pretty quiet, so couldn't really tell where he was at, I guess. And I remember sitting there with my dad, and we had binoculars, and he had a 22 with a scope. And I remember just like sitting up against this log, and we're like looking for squirrels, looking for squirrels. And I guess maybe out of boredom or something, I was like, I think I see a squirrel. I think I see a squirrel. And I didn't see a squirrel, but he didn't know that. And he gives me the gun, and he's there with me and everything. It's not like I'm just like shooting aimlessly or whatever, but he gives me the gun, and I look through the scope, and I remember just wanting to shoot the gun, but I didn't want to tell him that I just wanted to shoot the gun, because I knew he wasn't just gonna like let me shoot the gun while we are trying to hunt. So he like gives me the gun, and he's like, if you see a squirrel, shoot it. And I remember like seeing some little bump on the tree, like way up or something, and just like shooting it a couple times. And I'm sure that he realized that maybe I thought I saw a squirrel, and he thought that I was shooting at it, but he probably realized that there wasn't anything there. He probably just thought that I thought it was a squirrel or something like that. But I do remember wanting to like shoot the gun. So I told my dad I saw this squirrel, but there was actually no squirrel there. I actually don't know if he knows that story or not either. But that would be my first kind of memory of squirrel hunting and like shooting and all that stuff in the woods.
That's funny. I'm sure he would love to hear that again. And actually later in life hear, your side of the story now and see if he thought the same thing then.
Yeah, I
Um,
wonder. I wonder if he remembers that or not. I hunted that woods from the time I was little until like 3, 4, 5 years ago. So I kind of like even remember where we were kind of sitting at. We weren't very far in the woods, so I must have been too young to really go too far back in the woods. I bet we were 100 yards off the road. I feel like I could almost pick out the tree still.
yeah. So I know you said that you really loved to squirrel hunt as a kid, and that was kind of one of your first things that you did. But now, since that you're older and you've kind of done a little bit of, I wouldn't say everything, but a lot of things, is there like one specific thing that you love to do the most, or does it kind of just vary, like on occasion, like you like to do this one a little bit more, or tell me a little bit about that?
I would say, I mean, I like to hunt everything. I haven't hunted waterfowl or geese or anything like that. Mainly squirrels and frogs and deer and stuff. But I would say my favorite thing to hunt is probably deer. And I guess I like the whole preparation and the whole chess match of deer hunting. Like squirrel hunting, it's hard. I mean, people think that it's easy, that, oh, I see squirrels in my yard all the time, I could just shoot a squirrel super easy. But that's not the thing when I mean, and that that's not how it works when you go out squirrel hunting. But deer hunting, there's a lot of preparation that goes into it if you want to be successful. Of course, people get lucky, but I think for me, I like prepping 2 or 3 months before. I like finding the bedding areas. I like kind of figuring out where the deer live. I do a little bit enjoy trying to kill a specific deer, playing that chess match with them, getting up early. I kind of enjoy the suffering of like I don't think I'd like it as much if it was easy. If I went out every time and killed a deer, I think I would be bored with it. So as far as being my favorite out of everything I've done so far, I would say that it's probably deer. Now, if I lived out west and I could chase elk, um, or chase moose every year or something, maybe I would have a different answer. But for around here, deer is it for me. It's the most fun and the most challenging.
Yeah, I remember that whenever I met you, that was one of the things that you had said was that you didn't really like that some people think that deer hunting is super easy and that you kind of more like the struggle of it versus actually like killing the animal. You like more of the struggle and the learning process of it as well. Um, so as far as deer hunting, do you have like a specific like do you love more like archery season or gun season, muzzleloader?
Um, I I love to bow hunt. I like everything about that deer being close. I like that it's super it's more intimate than shooting a deer that's maybe a couple 100 yards away
Mhm.
with a gun. However, as you know, bow hunting can be very frustrating. So, I guess pick one of the if I had to pick one of the two, gosh, I would I would probably if it came down to I could only do one or the other for the rest of my life, I would probably pick gun hunting just for the simple fact that meat is super important to me. We don't really buy meat from the grocery store, so it's a lot easier to shoot a deer with a gun. But as far as the challenge side of it, I think that's why I like bow hunting so much. I like being close to that animal. I like knowing that I could get that animal so close without winding me. I could sneak in, get close. Um, but yeah, I love bow hunting. I start as soon as I can. I hunt Kentucky now. Everyone, I started that a couple years ago just so I could get on some deer about a month earlier. And sometimes I kick myself for that because it starts September 4th in Kentucky, and it's usually about 90 degrees. So it can be it can be hard, but I like the struggle. That's what makes it fun.
So I know you said your dad, taught you a lot about squirrel hunting, and so I assume, if he taught you about squirrel hunting, he probably taught you a little bit about guns. But as far as deer hunting and archery season, who kind of taught you or mentored you as far as like shooting a bow or tracking? Um, you know, Tracking is usually different. I feel like with a bow than it is just with like a gun. So who kind of taught you about that? Did someone mentor you, or did you kind of learn on your own?
So before I forget this, you can kind of toe off of this too about my color blindness after I answer and the whole tracking with that. But no, I actually didn't grow up bow hunting. My dad did a little bit of bow hunting. I would say probably in the early 90s. I'm not really sure when he started, but he always took me gun hunting. And I ended up grabbing a buddy's bow that he just had kind of had, and going with another guy that had archery hunted but never really been successful when I was in high school. About the age of 16, I would say, when I started driving. And he's like, "You want to go bow hunting?" And I was like, "I'll try it. Like, I've always wanted to do it, but I don't really know anything about it." I kind of knew what I knew back then about how deer hunting worked and everything. So I kind of got it. And he's like, "Oh, get that bow or whatever, and then we'll go hunting." So I remember the first time we went bow hunting, it was actually after school. and I had brought my clothes to change, and he was a year younger than me, this friend, and he put all of his stuff in my truck, and we changed clothes in the parking lot, and we drive to this other guy's house real quick, and he's like, "Here's that bow, man. Never shot it before. Didn't have a release. Never had shot a bow. Didn't sight it in. You know, anybody that knows anything about bows is they have to be like tuned to your body. You have to turn down the draw length. You have to sight them in. You have to get the poundage right. They have to be tuned and everything." So I pick up this old bow and we drive out to, I won't say the name of the property, but Taylor knows the name of the property, out off, the far east side or whatever. And we walk out. We walk out in this field, probably, I don't know, 400 or 500 yards, and we sit in this little clump of trees, and we're just like sitting next to each other. We just picked this spot because it was like shady, We had no idea. We didn't see anything. I actually had bought a new knife like a couple days before. It was a buck knife, and I ended up losing that brand new knife. I could probably go out there now with a metal detector and find it. I still know the tree where it's at, but we sat. We never did see anything. We hunted all that year, like after school. We drive around, try to figure out the deer. And now that I look back, like there's no chance in hell that we were going to kill a deer. Like we had no idea what we were doing. So that went on my junior and senior year. We probably did the same thing senior year. Never did kill a deer. We got a little more into it with hanging stands. Had some stands stolen. Never worked out. I don't even know if we actually ever saw a deer, and if we did, it was probably from the road or super far away. And yeah, it took me a couple years before I ended up shooting a deer and with a bow, and I taught myself completely how to do it because the other friend that was doing it, he knew a little bit about deer hunting too, but I don't think he was like me. He wasn't in the full realm or know the full thing about how bow hunting works and playing the wind and setting up stands and going in the right direction. And I think I needed to kind of get away and do it myself to kind of figure it out.
Yeah, that's great. So I know I kind of asked a little bit, but I don't think a lot of people know about this. But as far as tracking goes, you are colorblind. So how, when you're by yourself, I know a lot of times you struggle with that. So is there things that you have found that have helped you, or how do you go about that being colorblind?
So I'm like red-green colorblind. For anyone that doesn't know, like I can see red and I can see green, but it really screws with shades of stuff. So a lot of times red will look brown to me. And I also have some kind of deficiency or some kind of weird thing with blue and purple. I usually can't tell blue and purple apart, certain shades. But when I shoot a deer generally during the day, and let's say early season when everything's super green, I I struggle with being able to see bright red blood on green leaves. And as crazy as that sounds, I just can't seem to see it. So for me, I almost that time of year prefer to hunt in the evening, even though I do hunt, during the mornings. But I do feel like I see blood better at nighttime. So I have a blood light. I can't say that it works all that great, but it does work a little bit. But I think when it's dark outside, maybe I don't kind of wander because it's dark. And when it's daylight, you tend to want to wander because you can see everything that's around. You want to see if it went up over this hill. At nighttime, I feel like I really look for fresh, wet spots. And just for me, I feel like blood sticks out easier. I know Taylor's helped me a few times trail some deer. And when she shot her first deer, actually, not in 2021, but 2020, she had shot it with a crossbow. And I believe it was a heart shot, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a heart shot deer. We ended up never finding the arrow, but I looked and looked and looked because I was aware of where she had shot the deer. For her, it may have been like not really sure of where she shot it, but I was like watching.
Mhm.
So I knew exactly where the deer was at. We're like looking for blood, looking for blood. And we finally found blood, and there was like a ton of it. And she's the one that found it. And I never really could get on it, but it was a morning hunt and green leaves in September. So I don't know. It's a really weird thing. I'd love to talk to somebody else that has that kind of deficiency and see what their take is on it. But for me, I like nighttime tracking. It just seems to work better for me.
I know I thought a lot of times during the day you ask me more for help, or if it's me that has killed the deer, it's a lot easier for me to see it during the day versus at night. I can't see it at all, and you're all over it then. But I think that's definitely worked in our advantage. I guess that one of us is colorblind and the other one isn't. But I remember that day, that every time we've gone in the daylight, I'm like, it's right here. And you're like, where is it? You never see it, which I think is so funny and definitely a learning curve for someone that is, with someone that is colorblind or whatever, actually having to point it out to them that here is the blood. It's actually here. And then at night, I guess it's a learning curve for you to like show me like this is the blood and everything. And I've noticed that it's a lot easier for you to see it at night as well versus during the day.
Yeah, something else too. Maybe other people have this as well because I'm colorblind, but I can still see color. So it's just like certain shades. But um, one thing, and something that I've always noticed since I was a kid is I can see stuff that's camouflaged a lot easier than people that are not this kind of colorblind. Like I can pick out a deer that's super blended in that someone might not see. But when it comes to anything like a blaze orange tag, for example, in the woods in the daytime, I won't see it. I'll walk past blaze orange tags all day long, but I'll see this deer out in the field that's supposed to be camoed in that everyone's just like, wait, what? So I don't know if color blindness has something to do with breaking up or changing that shade for me or something, but it definitely works in my advantage sometimes, but it's also a big disadvantage. It just kind of depends on the situation.
Yeah. That's another thing that I remember when we were squirrel hunting. I think there was some that were like blocking off a boundary line or something, and you probably walked past 30 of them and never realized it. And I remember asking you at the end, like, did you see all of those orange flags or whatever? And you had no idea that they were there, and even was standing right next to one. And I was like, it's right there. And
Yeah, yeah,
it took you a little bit to actually see it.
I remember that specifically. It was that area that got logged out down in Kentucky, and there was a bunch of ribbons that they had tied onto the trees where they were either getting ready to log or that they logged out. And but I remember walking out almost by that field and you saying, "Oh, you see that orange tag?" And I'm like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's
kind of
weird.
to backtrack, I guess, from earlier, how many years did it take you if you were while you were bow hunting before you killed your first deer? Was it pretty early on, or was it kind of, later, I guess, than what you had hoped for?
So I started when I was a junior in high school. I hunted that junior year, hunted that senior year, and then let's see, I graduated in 2011. So it would have been probably about 3 or 4 years, closer to 4 years, I think. And yeah, I think I hunted for a year after high school and wasn't successful. And then I finally started kind of getting it, and I was hunting public land, and I was like I was getting my stand stolen. I was running into people all the time. I was like, okay, public land, like this is before like you hear like obviously people hunted public land then, but it was before it was super like mainstream. So there wasn't like a whole lot of content about what you should and shouldn't do on public land. So I'm like, I got to get away from these people. Like, I feel like I got to almost hunt these people too and pattern these people so I can get where these people are not, because I know that's where the deer are going to be. So I ended up hunting. I was actually hunting the lot where I was chasing that 10 this year. There was corn up, and I was like, I'm going to walk all the way down the field, and then I'm going to turn and walk all the way halfway down the back of the field because nobody's back there. I can kind of see who's pulling up in the parking lot. So I hang this stand up there. I hunt it morning and evening. I keep going in there, putting scent on the ground, not playing the wind. And I'm just like, let's see, it was probably, I believe it was like late October. It was probably around close to Halloween. And I'd been sitting and not really seeing a whole lot of deer, but there was sign in there. And I thought, oh, there's sign here. There's got to be deer here. Well, I didn't realize that, there's nighttime and daytime, all that stuff. But I'm sitting there one evening, and it's about 5 minutes before last shooting light, and where I had walked down the mid section of the back of this field, I hear, it sounds like I'm at a horse track. I hear these two deer run, and they're like running, clunk, 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 and they're getting closer to me. But I'm like in this tree, and where I'm at in this tree line, I'm kind of like back, so I can't totally like see where down the field, like kind of where I walked in, where they're coming from. So like one of them flies by me and the other one's like right behind him. So he flies by me. I believe it was probably a doe with it. And I, just like the shows or whatever, I'm like, Matt, and this deer like stops. And I'm like, oh God, like, here we go. Like I had shot at one deer prior to that, and I just totally caved. I ended up shooting into the tree. I was sitting on a bucket on the ground, but this deer stopped and I let that arrow fly. And I was like, I didn't really know back then, like I should shot this deer, like I'm going to get down and look for it. So I shoot the deer. I had Luminox on my arrows back then. I was at least smart enough to do that. So I knew that the arrow was actually there. So I checked the arrow. I don't really know at this time, like what I'm looking for on the arrow. I just know that there's blood. I don't really know about bubbles being lung hits or super dark blood being a liver hit. I don't know about like backing out and coming back later, depending on what the arrow looks like. So I just start tracking this deer, and there's like hardly any, there's trickles of blood and then trickles of blood. And, but it's okay. Like I'm still following it, and I get inside the wood line and I see a huge patch of blood. Well, at this time I didn't realize that it was a liver hit, but looking back, like I know now that it was a liver hit because it was super dark. And, I followed the blood a little more after that patch and ended up finding this deer. I bumped it a couple times, but ended up dying. I don't even remember. It probably clipped lung or something too. But I walked up on the deer and I was like super happy and everything. Oh, finally shot like my first deer or whatever. And nice sized doe. And I drug it up probably 100 yards up this embankment to the back of this. I tried to get it back out to where I kind of shot it at, because it's kind of some woods and then a grassy lane like for the tractors and stuff, and then there's standing corn. I get it back there and I'm like kind of like sitting there or whatever, and then I like look at it and I realize that it's a spike, and it's only about 2 inches long. So the law here in Indiana is if that single spike is less than 3 inches, you can tag it as a doe. So it ended up being a doe, but it was like a little spike buck, probably went 120 pounds. And I remember I had a Dodge Ram at the time, and it was kind of lifted up, and I was by myself. So I ended up dragging it to the truck. And like now I have a little hitch thing that I put in my truck, so I can, it only sits a couple feet off the ground, so I can throw a deer on there super easy. But back then I had to get this deer in my truck by myself. By the time I drug it out and everything, it's probably 11 o'clock at night. So I'm looking like real sketch out in public land with this deer. But I couldn't get this deer up on my truck, and there was like nobody to help me or anything. So finally I ended up, like when you pull a tailgate down, it's got like the little wires on the side that hold the tailgate on. I ended up getting that little spike hooked up around that wire to hold his head up, and I picked the whole deer up and got it in there. But it was rough, but I remember it, and that's a pretty memorable hunt. I was happy about that. I got it home, got it hung up. And there's an old picture I've posted of me. It was hanging out in the tree in the driveway years ago, back in 2013.
So I know that you do a lot of, or we, I guess I should say, do a lot of hunting, on private and on public land. Do you have a favorite? And then kind of, is there any disadvantages or advantages to each one?
So I love private land. I love private land because, it's often easier, I guess. And sometimes with that frustration, depending on kind of what you're going after, but you definitely don't have as much pressure on it. So that itself helps you. But I would say that I really like public land because I love that challenge. And I love that on public land, you're often kind of limited on private land because you may have a 5 or 10, 15, whatever acre area that you can hunt. On public, that whole public area you can go on. So I like the public because there's always that unknown. You can kind of float around. Like here in Indiana, you may get a patch of woods that's 10 acres, 15 acres or something. It's usually pretty small and broken up, and it's really hard to get permission on like maybe a full woods. So public, I feel like I can chase these deer a lot better because I'm not limited. But the downside of public is always the pressure. But I kind of like that pressure because I like kind of the torture of battling not only the people but the deer. I feel like when you hunt private land, sometimes you get in the mindset of just walking into the same stand. You sit in the same stand, you do the same thing. When you hunt public, you move around. Each hunt's kind of a little different when you move around, and I think that helps you from kind of getting bored.
Yeah, I agree completely. I know this actually just popped in my head, but I was just thinking, so is there anything, I guess, that has ever happened to you, either on public or on private land, that's been a little sketchy or, a little suspicious?
Um, so I guess I've never had any weird that I recall right now. I've probably never really had too many weird experiences on private land, but on public land, I have, and these were all on the same public ground, state-owned ground that I shot my first deer on. One of them was a few years ago. I decided I was going to gun hunt this property, and it's not very big, and it's not super safe to gun hunt. It's okay to bow hunt, not super safe to gun hunt because it's so small and kind of scared everybody's going to shoot each other. But I'm sitting in my stand, and it's about 8:30 in the morning, super cold morning, super calm, and I hear crunch, crunch, crunch behind me. I'm like, okay, here comes a deer. Like, so I look behind me and I see an orange vest. I'm like, is the guy tracking a deer or what? The guy, this is no shit. This guy is walking through the woods, opening morning, 8:30 in the morning, with a deer call, with a grunt call in his mouth, blowing the grunt call, meh, 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 about 3 seconds apart or so, way too much. Didn't even sound right. And he's holding, this was back when the windicators, anybody that knows like a windicator is, it's kind of just like a little bottle with like baking soda or something in it, just like a white powder that you kind of puff and it kind of tells you wind direction. And he's like walking through the woods with this shotgun, big Elmer Fudd looking hat, blowing this call and doing this windicator. And I whistled at him or said something to him and kind of like threw my hands up, so he kind of like knew I was there. I assumed he wasn't going to shoot me up in the tree, but he just kind of looks at me, he waves, and he just kind of goes in like a diagonal direction away from me out towards this field. And after I couldn't see him anymore, I climbed down, got back to the truck. But that was a really weird experience. I don't know if that guy was like an anti-hunter and he just wanted to mess with some people, or if he was like a new hunter. I don't really know, but it was really weird. I also had an experience. I had two experiences frog gigging by myself. One of them, I was frog gigging one night, and there was a little bit of a hill that went down to the kind of like this drainage pond that I'd been wanting to hit. And I was out there by myself, and I see this van pull up, and it's probably 200 yards or so off. I'm about 200 yards off the road, and I see this like gold van pull up, and I hear like 22 pops. I never did hear them like whiz over my head, but they were pretty much in line with me shooting that 22. I don't know if they were shooting at me, if they were trying to scare me, if they were just like, I just happened to be there. I shut my light off and kind of got down, below kind of where the lake dips in a little bit. And they ended up leaving, but it was kind of sketchy too, because I wasn't sure if they were just like out poaching or trying to, I don't know. It could have been high school kids or something. And then the third thing that happened to me, I was frog gigging one time. I was at the same state property. I was at the main check-in where the deer check-in station's at, which where is that. And I'm probably 400 or 500 yards from the parking lot, and there's a huge lake, and it's got kind of a trail that goes around it. And I see a vehicle pull in, and it's probably 10 or 12 o'clock at night. So it's pretty late. And state grounds, any kind of public land can be sketchy at nighttime. But I didn't really think a whole lot of it. I was pretty far from the road. And for the most part, you can't really get to where I was at unless you came down the path. And it's pretty dark. So I keep frog gigging, probably making my way down, and I gigged this frog. And I was taking a picture of it probably to post it's probably, I don't know, I guess Facebook was around then. So I was probably posting it to Facebook or something, or maybe I was just taking a picture of it. But I'm taking a picture of this frog, and all of a sudden I hear, I'm down with the light and everything. So I'm kind of like blinded by the light and the camera flash and everything. Like I was literally like flashing the camera as I was taking this picture, and somebody goes, "Hey, what are you doing?" Mind you, I'm like 400 yards from the road, and I'm like, what? Like scared me. And there's like some woods and some thick weeds around there. And I look up and I realize that it's a game warden. And I'm like, and I probably look super sketch. Like I was like kind of startled, but I would probably look like I was like trying to lie or something. I'm like, I'm taking a picture of this frog like that I just gigged. And he like asked for my license or something. And I don't know. I don't remember if he called it in or something, but he's like, "Okay, you're good on your license or whatever." But he goes, "There's an issue with your frog gig." And I was like, "What?" And anybody that knows me, like, I know all the regs. I know the regs like better than anyone else when it comes to like Indiana, just because I like read them every year and everything. So he's like, your frog gig is too, let's see, what was it? It had too many prongs on it, is what he said. And I don't remember at the time, it was probably, I would probably say it was 20 prongs or something. But the regulation for a frog gig is it can have one or like 1,000 prongs as long as it's not any wider than 3 inches. Well, he was trying to tell me that the frog gig had to have a certain amount of prongs and be 3 inches or something like that. And I was like, I'm not getting a ticket for this. Like, I know I'm right. So he ends up going back to the truck. He walks like that whole 400 yards or something. And he's like, just hang out here, which, I mean, for him, that probably was sketchy for him too. Like some guy just like hanging out. But he comes back and he's like, "Oh, yeah, you are right. It is 3 inches and however many prongs." So I ended up like not getting a ticket because I didn't do anything wrong. I don't know if he was like a new game warden, or maybe he just didn't deal with frog gigging stuff that often, but he was pretty young. So I suspect that maybe he had just got out of training. But yeah, it definitely scared me when he popped up on me randomly. I was out in public land by myself, and just next thing I know, game warden just pops up out of the weeds. Like I didn't know if it was a guy that's going to try to rob me or something.
Right. Now that you say that, I completely forgot that happened to you, but I remember you telling me the story now. So I was thinking about this as well. I know that you said that a lot of things sketchy haven't happened to you on private land, but I know there is one that has happened to us lately, and I think it would be interesting if you touched on that a little bit.
Uh, I don't think I'm following. Which one?
Camera, the camera.
Oh, the camera. Yeah, that's right, the camera. So, yeah, just real quick. Um, so we had a camera that we put out for a reduction zone here in Indiana, which is basically like, since we live in a city or whatever, it's not like a city like you would think like downtown Chicago or something, but since we live in like this city, they have a reduction zone. So I put this camera out and we hunted it opening day of gun season. I had been running this camera a little bit and checking it and trying to get on some deer, but the area is small and we can't really move around a lot. And I had other plans to go to Kentucky. I was taking off of work and I was hunting this public in Indiana. So I'd completely ignored this camera all year. We didn't even go back there after first day of gun season because we just had so much going on. And we got a bunch of rain and I knew that the creek was going to come up. And I was like, I got to get down there and snag this camera. Like I like kind of like forgot about it. I wasn't really like in the mode of like checking it, trying to pattern these deer. So I like grabbed this camera, bring it home, and I'm like, there's like 10 pictures on it. I'm like, because the first time I put it out, remember, there was like 200 or 300 pictures in like a couple of days.
Yeah.
So we pull it up, and I put it in my computer, and there's like some nighttime pictures of does. There might have been some buck on there. And next thing you know, like my camera goes to like night mode, which I don't even know how to like set it to night mode, but you could like tell that it was on night mode because it was like a daytime on the time was like a timestamp of a daytime, but it was like taking a nighttime photo. And actually before that, you could see like as you look at a trail camera, you get used to seeing the same like trees or the same bush. Remember seeing it kind of shift. And we could tell like something was moving this camera just a little bit to the left, a little bit to the left. And then it went to like that night mode. And then like the next picture we saw is like this guy staring at the camera, but it's off the tree. It looks like he's either in his house or it's like the trim inside of his truck. Well, by this point, you assume that this guy's taken your camera, but obviously he hasn't. If I've pulled the camera to keep it from flooding up, and now I have the SD card. So this guy had took this camera. I assume he walked up back to his vehicle, realized maybe it was a cell camera and that we could track it, or was trying to figure out what it was. I'm not really sure. He was probably older, probably 50s, 60s. Went down and strapped it back to the tree. But yeah, it's the first time I've ever had somebody steal a trail camera and put it back. And I knew that day it was raining, and I usually tie a certain knot on my trail cameras. And I felt like something was off, but it was raining and stuff so hard that I wasn't really like stopping to think about it. But now that I think about it, it was tied funny because that guy had pulled my camera. So we have no idea who that guy is. We have his picture. Maybe we'll run into him someday and ask him what the hell he was doing.
Yeah. So I know in that woods was one of my most memorable hunts, and it was the first deer that I ever killed. But it wasn't memorable for that point, I guess. For me, it was most memorable because I was actually pregnant with our son, Boone, but I didn't realize it at the time. But for you, what is your most memorable hunt?
I would have to say, and I would say probably everybody, I would probably say that everybody would say that their first deer kill would be their first memorable hunt. Mine would be my first buck, which I killed up there where we used to squirrel hunt when we were kids. Actually spine shot that deer after my dad had missed it. My dad had shot at it with a muzzleloader about 100 yards away and missed it. And that deer, it was during the rut, walked straight over to my stand, and I shot it with a Remington 870 Wingmaster with a rifled slug, spine shot. Didn't kill it, had to get down and finish it off. But I would say that's pretty memorable. first bow kill is something you tend to usually remember, just because there's kind of like so much that goes into it, tracking and all that stuff too. Um, and then your first bow kill, that's pretty memorable to me because we were together and you shot it, and we knew it was a good shot and couldn't find blood at first. And but yeah, I remember that was a good day.
Yeah, mine as well. I think so too. So I guess to kind of touch on that as well. So I know a lot of guys just kind of leave their wives or girlfriends at home and don't really get them involved in the outdoors and hunting. But what made you decide to kind of involve me in something that you like to do?
Well, I guess maybe most maybe wives or girlfriends probably don't have an interest in it. Um, so I knew you had been as a kid, so I knew like I kind of had you at that, like you had been as a kid, and you weren't like totally like I'm not gonna go out. You didn't like grow up all maybe like I'm not gonna go get muddy or I'm not gonna like walk in the woods. So I knew like that you were probably willing, but I mean, it's just like kind of fun to go with somebody. And I thought, we'll go together, we'll try this out. And if she likes it, she likes it. And I remember that we went quite a bit before you actually like, decided to get behind the gun or whatever. But yeah, I mean, you seem to like it and seem to want to stick with it. So I was like, we'll take you. If you like it, you can go. If you don't like it, then you can stay at home. But it ended up working out, it seems like. Plus, we like to eat the meat. So um,
Yeah.
we got somebody else to fill tags.
I remember one thing that you said to me was that you weren't going to like push it on to me. And, whenever we had Boone, you said that you weren't going to push it on to him, that you would, show us, I guess, and, teach us a little bit. And if we seemed interested, you'd kind of continue and go with that. But, if we kind of pushed back and said, like, I want to stay home, or I'm not interested in this, or it scares me, or whatever, you wouldn't keep on about it and kind of, I guess, push us whenever we weren't wanting to do it. So I think
Yeah.
that's really great that, I think a lot of times, I guess parents can push their children or whatever, and then their kids end up pushing back and everything. So I think that's a really good aspect, that you are willing to teach us, but not like wanting to shove it down our throat at the same time. So
Yeah.
I
I
guess,
think I think it can be I think it's touchy, there's a kind of like a fine line, like you don't want to really cross. I think a lot of that happens like in sports and stuff. Kids parents maybe play football and they want to push their kids so hard that it becomes miserable. So you just kind of like introduce them to it. If they like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. And in this case, it seemed to have worked out. It's funny that you talk about shooting that deer when you were pregnant because Taylor was feeding Boone dinner this evening. Actually, we had dinner this evening and it had
yeah,
deer meat in it. And I started to think about when that meat was shot and everything. And I'm about 99.9% sure that he was eating meat from the deer that she shot when she was pregnant with him. So that's pretty cool.
yeah, very full circle, right?
Very full circle.
um, so I guess I may not want to know the answer to this, but I'll go ahead and ask anyways. What is the biggest struggle that you have faced kind of teaching me about the outdoors and about hunting?
Um, well, you grew up around guns and stuff, but probably teaching you how to be comfortable with a gun and knowing that, like, that it's not going to just like go off and like
Mhm.
kind of teaching you how to carry it. I don't know if that's really a struggle, but that's something that I feel like I've tried to teach you how to check your safety, how to carry the gun, how not to like walk beside me with the gun slung on your back, loaded, where you could maybe trip, and it go off. Checking your safety as you walk through the woods multiple times because you don't know if it's going to get snagged on a branch and click, accidents happen. So I don't know if that's really a struggle, but it's something I've tried to work on. Probably the biggest struggle I've had with you, or the two biggest struggles. One would be recoil on a gun. You seem to always be kind of hesitant when you shoot a gun for the first time. You're afraid that it's going to whack you in the eye or how bad it's going to kick. But we worked on that this year. You shot 30-06. First time you'd actually shot a deer. So I don't think we're going to have that issue a whole lot anymore. But something that we do probably need to work on is going to be your fear of heights. And we did work on that a little bit in Kentucky. You know, I tend to hunt kind of fairly high up, and Taylor's a little bit scared of being on a 2 foot by, I don't know, 18-inch platform and climbing and all that stuff. Of course, she is tied in with a harness and everything, but she is scared of heights. So it's something we have to work on. Usually when you deer hunt, for the most part, at least around here, you're pretty elevated. But I think over time, you know, maybe you hunt 10 feet, maybe the next year you hunt 15 feet, or maybe you just hunt a lot and you kind of get used to it. Just like when you drive a car, you're kind of scared at first. The more you drive, next thing you know, you're driving around like, I don't know, a NASCAR driver or something. Like, it's just something you got to kind of do repetitively, and you'll get comfortable with it eventually. Something else too. I kind of want to. I've noticed, or we've probably both noticed, that you're not really comfortable me dropping you at this stand, or you sit here, or I want to sit there. So I kind of want to work on getting you more comfortable where you can grab the gun out of the truck, load up your bag, walk 5,000 yards away from me, sit down, kind of know when you need to pull back the bow or pull up the gun and shoot, kind of know where I'm at so you don't shoot me. I kind of want you to be where you can get comfortable climbing in a stand yourself, hunting by yourself, knowing when to pull the trigger, all that stuff. But it's like anything else. You gotta do it enough, and you gotta kind of learn what to do and what not to do, and it'll come in time. I mean, you've been actually shooting. I mean, you've been going hunting longer than 2 years, but you've been actually like shooting, killing deer or whatever for 2 years now. So I don't know. We'll get there.
Yeah. Baby steps.
Baby steps.
So I guess I would still consider myself a very new hunter, I would say. I mean, I've only killed 2 deer, but you know, I've only been going, I would say 4 or 5 years or so, something like that with you. And a little bit as a kid, which I never shot or anything like that as a kid. So, and I didn't really pay much attention to gun safety or anything like that as a kid. So I would say I'm still pretty new. But is there anything that you would like to teach new hunters, or something that you think that new hunters should know? Any advice for them?
Number one thing is be safe. I mean, you definitely need to know how to be safe with a gun or even a bow. You know, bow hunting. I mean, most people that bow hunt and get hurt, they usually do one of two things. They usually fall out of a tree stand, or they end up, and this is often hand in hand, they end up goring themselves with a broadhead. Anybody that knows anything about broadheads is they're super sharp. So safety would be the number one thing. But I mean, as far as advice, like trying to maybe get your first kill or anything, you just kind of gotta, like me, you have to try and fail and figure out what works for you. And a lot of times you listen to podcasts and stuff, and you're like, that's what everyone tells me to do. This guy tells me to do something different. You just kind of have to figure out what works for you. Maybe hunting off the ground works for you. Maybe hunting 35 feet in the air works for you because you don't know how to play the wind. Whatever works for you, that's what I would do. You just have to struggle through it and figure out, you know, every hunt is different. Every property is different. Every area of the country is different. You have to try. You have to figure out where the deer, the squirrels, or whatever you're hunting's at, and you have to adjust. The main thing is you have to be flexible, and you have to be willing to put in the work. It's the main thing. Of course, people get lucky, but put in the work. Listen to as much content as you can, but you have to get out there and try it and figure it out.
Yeah, I agree. I've definitely noticed that that you and I do things a little bit different from each other, which you would think you've taught me that I would do everything the way that you do, but even holding a gun or holding a bow or anything like that is just a little bit different. So I think for each person, it's no matter what you're doing in hunting, you kind of have to like tweak it just a little bit from if you learn from someone to kind of make it your own, or if you heard it from a podcast or a TV show or something, you kind of have to tweak it to make it your own style.
Yeah, definitely.
So kind of to jump into your 2021 season, if you want to recap on that a little bit.
2021 season was tough at first. Ended up working out, but Taylor knows, but I haven't really. I maybe shared it on social and stuff, but I hunted Kentucky for a few weeks, starting September. Probably hunted it till late September, maybe the third week of September. Was trying to kill these deer, couldn't get on these bucks. Wanted to kill a velvet, couldn't make it happen. So I was like, I'm gonna shift. Time changes and different stuff happens. So I'm like, I'm gonna hunt some public by work. So it's something that I could go into work a little early. I could hit this piece of property. Ended up finding, I floated around this public piece. This is this is the same area, same piece of public property that I'd shot my first bow kill and where all this crazy frog gig and stuff and guys blowing calls on opening day of gun season happened. But I ended up getting on a decent 10. There was an 8 around there. Was trying to figure him out. Had him like 5-6 yards one evening, about a minute after last shooting light. Of course, didn't take the shot. And never could seem to get on him. So I went, started hunting September 4th. And then I believe, let's see, gun season. It was about 2 or 3 days before gun season. So about the second week of November, about 3 or 4 days prior, I got permission on a new piece, a private piece, went in and saw some does that evening. Couldn't get a shot. Ended up going back the next day or the day after, putting up a mobile setup, completely screwed that up. Couldn't get it set right in the tree. Couldn't get it where I wanted to be at. I was on a levee and the height differences was making everything funky. It was getting dark and I was like, I'm just going to sit on this levee. And actually, when I was hanging that stand, a doe came in, blew out, and I was like, this hunt's ruined. So I ended up just sitting it out and ended up shooting a nice buck. He came in, walked down this levee. He came in chasing a doe. The doe and the buck flew up over this levee. Couldn't get a shot. Next thing I know, she comes flying past me over the other side of the levee. Buck comes walking down the top of the levee, staring at me at 5 yards. Was getting ready to shoot him in the chest, trying to kind of wiggle the crossbow around this log. And he spots me because I'm scared to death. It's the rut that he's going to try to come up and gore me or something. He spooks down the levee to about 25 yards, and I shoot him. Looked like a good shot. I was on the ground, everything. So looked like a good shot. Waited 45 minutes to an hour. This was about 45 minutes before last light. Found the arrow. Good blood on the arrow. No blood on the ground hardly. Very trickly blood trail. Ended up following the trail that he went down, finding pin drops of blood, texting Taylor the whole time, like trying to figure this out, trying to figure this out. On my hands and knees, nighttime, getting kind of late, probably 2 hours after. And I'm talking like a toothpick somebody dipped in blood and put on a leaf in the middle of the woods, pin drops of blood. That finally ran out, came to a fork in the trail, and just kind of started looking around and ended up seeing his belly. But yeah, I was super stoked to kill that deer. He was right at, I think he was 198 field dressed. But yeah, after that, a couple days after gun season rolled around, ended up shooting 2 does in Kentucky, walking to my stand. One evening, was it an evening? Yeah, it was an evening, 2 does. And then went back a couple days later, made it to the stand that time, ended up shooting a doe about 15 minutes after the sun had came up. And then went back to where I'd shot the buck, ended up shooting a doe there off the levee where I'd shot the buck from a couple days later. And then went back to the same area. And this is a very big area that we kind of have. So there's a ton of does. A farmer wants a lot of these does taken off. So ended up shooting 2 does off that property. Had filled all my tags for Indiana. And then Taylor and I went back, I think the last Saturday of gun season, the Sunday was left and then it was going to be out. Yeah, shot a deer, but I think we ended up killing 6 or 7 deer this year.
6 for you and 1 for me, so 7 total. Yeah.
Yeah. So we and that seems like a lot. I guess people think that's a lot, but we eat deer meat. We don't really buy it from the store, so that'll get us through. That'll definitely get us through into next season. We had some sausage made and stuff like that, but it turned around for me. It was pretty rough at first. I didn't think I was kind of getting in a meat crisis. We had like 20 pounds of meat left. Couldn't seem to kill a deer, but
yeah,
thank God for high powered rifles.
I know a lot of people that have said that they're like, oh my God, 7 deer, that's a ton. Like, why do you need all this meat and everything? But I think this is, just thinking back, I think this is going into our 5th year of not buying like any kind of ground beef or anything like that from the store. I mean, we buy a bag of chicken like once every, couple of months or something. But other than that, we don't buy any kind of ground beef or ground turkey or anything like that from the store. And I think it's honestly, we've talked about this a little bit before, and we can kind of touch on that. Like, we have no idea what the price of meat is at the store because we don't buy it. And I have a couple of coworkers that, we talk all day long and have told me, oh my God, ground beef's this price or bacon's this price. And I have absolutely no idea because, ever since I've been on my own, I haven't bought like a ton of meat or anything. And then whenever I met Adam, like I probably only bought meat for 3, 4, or 5 months, something like that. When we first got together. So, I mean, I have no idea what the price of bacon is or the price of, ground beef or anything. So I think that's kind of funny.
I don't really go to the store that often, but I really don't care to walk past the meat section, seeing all that meat that's all like kind of looks all the same weight and all the same just color and stuff. It just kind of like grosses me out.
Yeah. So back on your 2021 season, is there any kind of, big lesson that you've learned or anything that you would like to go back and change?
So I did more mobile hunting this year. I didn't really have I had a climber, but I wanted to, a lot of times with a climber, you can't get in 90% of the trees. They got to be straight up and have no limbs on them. So I ended up taking a hang on and some sticks that are meant to go in and set up a set, not carry around and be mobile with. But I ended up doing that a little more, but I didn't do it as much as I kind of wanted to. I'm gonna move to a saddle probably a little more, do kind of more of that. But yeah, definitely move around more. I seem to be more, I didn't end up killing that 10 on public, but it definitely, I learned that moving around and kind of hunting the sign instead of sitting in the same spot every day, doing the same thing. I definitely saw more deer. So I know if I move around more next year, I feel like I can be more successful. I'm definitely going to go back and try to kill that 10. if somebody hadn't shot him, I don't know, it's public ground. That deer probably traveled, and who knows what happened. But I've got a pretty good spot, I think, locked in for next year. Kind of my biggest regret, I would say, is I was so frustrated probably the first 2 months that I didn't film like I wanted to film. I kind of, filming is a lot of work. You got to pack in all this stuff. You got to set up everything. You got to go into work early so you can get off extra early. So you have time to pack all your camera gear, get it up in the tree, set it all up, break it all down. So I got frustrated and just kind of ditched the camera this year. It's something I wish I would have done more of, and I plan to do more of next year. Hopefully I won't be so focused on trying to kill a deer. Maybe I'll be more focused on filming next year, but I should have took the camera more when we ended up landing that spot where I ended up killing my buck. Probably would have been a lot. It's a little easier hunting out there because there's a lot more deer. There's no pressure. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere. You can kind of get by with a little more when it comes to filming stuff. It's not as the deer aren't as sketched out by you out there, it seems like, as they are in public. So if we end up being able to go back there next year, I want to be able to film you definitely more and film myself, because I feel like we could have got some good footage out there, especially on that deer. You almost shot a buck. I was trying to get some does out there with Taylor. Ended up leaving her at the kind of the corner of the field and making my way out to this field. I was kind of walking real low out in this field, trying to shoot this doe. And next thing I know, a buck comes flying past out in this field. And I'm like trying to call Taylor, telling her to get up here, because I can't shoot the buck. It was a nice buck, but I already filled my tag. And she ended up getting up there, and he walked in the woods like right when she was getting ready to pull the trigger. But that would have been really cool to have on camera. So hopefully next year we can do that. We can do that more. It'd be fun to look back on.
I think that's probably my biggest, I guess, lesson learned or regret or whatever in 2021 was that buck. I remember I was so scared, like, to spook him, and I was like, he's just gonna run off. So I was trying to hurry into the field and everything, but be quiet and make sure he doesn't see me and everything. And I stopped, and I think I stopped for probably 2 seconds, and you're like, come on, get up here. And I did. And then I probably could have used those extra 2 seconds and would have gotten him, but he ran off. So I think
Taylor made a good call. She definitely said she could have shot him, but she said that she wasn't sure if it would have been a good shot. Maybe it would have been a gut shot. So she made a really good call on not pulling the trigger whenever there's brown in the scope, and actually waiting for an ethical shot. And Taylor we actually went hunting that day and shot a deer before we even got where we were going. She shot a doe, and she was carrying some of the equipment. We shot the deer. We had like an hour till the sun was going to go down. And I was like, you carry the gun or something, and I'll like drag this deer out. It wasn't that far, maybe 100 yards or something. Mm-hmm. And we get out to the edge of the field. Like, we still have daylight. Like, let's just sit here and see what happens. Next thing we know, all these deer are funneling out, and it was good. We almost sealed the deal, but you end up shooting a doe that night, so we got some meat, so it worked out.
Yeah, for sure. So to kind of, I guess, talk future plans, I know you said that in 2022 you're planning on filming a little bit more, and I definitely plan on going with you more in 2022 than I was able to this year with the newborn. But as far as 2022 goes, do you have any plans, like as far as upgrades, like with camera gear or, like stands or any kind of gear in general?
Can't wait to tell my wife this, everybody, but I'm getting ready to spend a whole bunch of money. So I had a camcorder, like a typical camcorder you'd see a few years ago. Ended up ditching that because I wanted to film and do like photography stuff. I thought it'd be good to have a camera to take pictures. But a DSLR, like imagine a photographer would have, has all these lenses and stuff on it. I've learned that you have to swap lenses to get different angles and to zoom in and get different shots and do B-roll. So it becomes very cumbersome to swap lenses as you're trying to film yourself and trying to shoot a deer and trying to talk to the camera and not drop everything. So 2022, I'm going to go back to a camcorder. I want to be able to zoom in and out. I want to be able to run a remote. And I've got to go lighter because I've got way too much weight. Right now I'm carrying 60 pounds in the woods. By the time I carry in camera gear, a camera arm, a tree stand, a hoodie, water when it's 95 degrees outside, a knife, it's just getting kind of ridiculous. So I'm going to go to that. I'm going to get a camcorder. I'm going to go to a lighter camera arm. I want to do something fiberglass. And then as far as ditching the kind of the heavy metal stand, I'm going to go with I'm going to spend the money and get a good light set of sticks. Not sure what brand I'm going to go with yet. So if anybody has recommendations, but I do want to spend the money and get the good set because I plan to use them for a long time. And I'm going to go with a cruiser saddle this year. I'm going to go with the one that's, I don't know the specific name, but it's kind of like the 2-piece. Kind of has a spot that goes around your back and your butt. I think they only weigh a couple pounds. And I'm hoping to shed my weight like 40 pounds by the time I shed the climber and maybe all those lenses and the big old heavy camera arm. But yeah, main thing this year, be more mobile and definitely be lighter.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, kind of ties into something we talked about earlier, how, in a lot of things that you've been doing for however long that you've been doing it, 10, 15 years, by now people would say like that everything about hunting or baseball or whatever it is that you've been doing for 10 or 15 years. But it kind of goes to show that you're always, learning more and, doing more, new things or trying new strategies or whatever in hunting to kind of better yourself or to better the situation.
Yeah, it's funny too because you learn more every year, but I think it's impossible to really ever know anything because things change. Things are constantly changing, so you have to. It's not so much maybe learning, but it's adapting. Like you may hunt a piece of public for years and have it figured out, and next thing you know, they log it, or next thing you know,
Mm-hmm.
new family moves in next door that thinks it's their piece of property and they hunt it and run all over it all the time, which is fine, but maybe it has more activity on it. So you definitely, if you're going to hunt, which I assume most people listening to this podcast do, I think the main thing is you gotta learn how to adjust because things always change, and when you're deer hunting, they change every week for sure, and pretty much every day. As deer, wild animals, they don't do the same thing every day.
Mm-hmm. So I know we have this next question written down, and people probably think that I know everything that goes on in your podcast room and everything like that. But little disclaimer, I don't know everything. I don't know, all the people I talk to on social media or anything like that. So I'd be curious to know this as well.
Shout out to all my online girlfriends.
Right. What are your plans for your podcast and for YouTube in 2022?
So YouTube, I've slacked on that. I put a couple videos out. But I don't have anything to put out right now because I didn't film last year at all. So this year I've got to get more footage out, do more filming, film everything, which I know I need to do. I just, for me, it was the meat crisis thing. It was kind of more important than trying to get content out, which is super important. But this year I got to film more. I got to get more content out. As far as the podcast, I'm just going to keep grinding, keep putting out episodes. I usually do. I'm on a schedule now of dropping one every Monday, but you never know with me. I may get a couple recorded and drop 2 or 3 one week. So I'm going to keep trying to get guests on here that can bring you guys, you listeners, value, stuff that you guys can hopefully learn from, tell people stories, and maybe you take a piece from here and there and kind of put your own kind of thing together and help yourself out.
Yeah, I think there's a lot in the works for 2022 and beyond. I definitely feel like, I mean, I think you started this podcast in like August or something.
Yep,
Right
end of
around the time I
August.
think we had COVID.
Yep.
And I definitely think it's grown since then. I know that sometimes you talk about the listeners or whatever, and even like the people that you have talked to on social media. And it's definitely, I feel like it's every time we talk about it, there's new people and there's, more people that you've talked to on social media and stuff. So I definitely think that, that you're reaching a pretty good audience, but also having some really great guests and even meeting a lot of new people and learning, from them, or, having people learn from you and from your podcast and YouTube channels and all of that, and just talking to them. But also I think that you are learning a lot from them as well. And then,
Mm-hmm.
teaching me that. So I'm really thankful that you've been able to reach out to so many people and been able to use social media to your advantage.
Yeah, I learned a lot. I learned a lot from my guests. I try to ask questions that obviously I ask questions, stuff that I want to know, but I try to people message me and ask me stuff, or I know there's some stuff that people might wonder about. So I try to kind of put those questions out. I try to put the question with what I feel is the best person to answer the question, to relay that information to whoever needs it or wants to hear it.
Yeah. So as far as guests go, is there anyone, I guess, that is either, like from the past in the hunting industry or even like the present, that you would like to have on the show if you could, or even just meet them in real life?
I mean, there's a lot of cool people out there. Everybody has their own kind of style and their own thing that they do. There's people that only kill 200-inch deer. There's people that are coyote killers. There's people that are like the best bass fishermen. But I talk about everything on here, really. I mean, we're going to probably eventually get into, I mean, we might get into foraging for mushrooms. We might get into, kind of homesteading stuff. Like, it's kind of like anything that's kind of wild, that has to do with hunting, eating, conservation. So I'm not super tied into a specific maybe topic, like a bow hunting podcast would be, or a bass fishing podcast would be. So I'm sure everyone knows the name, but I mean, I'm sure I'd go with Steve Ranella. He seems to know a little bit or a lot of bit about everything. But yeah, dude's super smart. I'd like to get him on the show sometime. I doubt that's ever going to happen, but I'd like to meet him. He knows a lot, and I like he holds himself very well, and I just like the way he speaks. I think he's got a lot of knowledge. I listen to his podcast. Sometimes they get a little bit off topic, but there's some questions that I'd like to ask him and maybe pick his brain on and see, because yeah, dude seems to get it.
Yep. Yeah, I agree completely. We actually need to watch his new episodes on Netflix soon.
Yeah, I saw that they dropped yesterday
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah. So what is your biggest goal for 2022 season? I'm sure your listeners probably are wondering that as well.
Biggest goal, I guess, would be I got to get more YouTube content out, do more filming. Definitely going to keep up with the podcast, going to keep doing it, rolling out stuff, new content for that. Maybe a hunting goal, I guess, for me. I really want to shoot a velvet buck in Kentucky, but there's a very short window for that, and everything really has to go right. So it's a goal of mine. I'm not going to be like crushed if I can't make it happen. But yeah, I'm going to try to seal a deal on that this year. We'll see what happens. I'm going to try to do a little more, maybe scouting a week before. I run I often run cameras, but I sometimes I'll put out a camera, and then, but a week before I might be prepping gear and stuff and not actually out kind of glassing fields at nighttime. Maybe I need to do that more, but I'm gonna try to seal a deal on a velvet buck this year. Let's fingers crossed.
Yeah. So I think, if there's anything that anyone can take, I guess, from this podcast about Adam in real life, is his life literally revolves around hunting of every sort. He eats, sleeps, breathes anything hunting. Our whole life is literally
only realness here. None of this is fake. You should tell the story. So I'll just run through this real quick. Anybody that doesn't know, we got engaged. I put a shed out. Said, "Will you marry me?" on the shed. Told Taylor I had to go to the bathroom. I walked over this hill. Long story short, put this shed down. Had a camera behind it. I said, "Oh, I want to get some footage for YouTube." So I found this shed over here, but I haven't touched it yet. I want you to walk up on it like you're actually looking for a shed, so I can get this, cool angle. Anybody that knows anything about filming it's all about the angles and stuff. But she ends up finding this shed or whatever, and we get engaged. But tell the story about planning the wedding, about the kind of like the timeline of it.
So I was actually talking to your mom about that the other day because I couldn't remember. So our anniversary is February 15th. And I was talking to her about it, and I was like, I don't remember exactly, we don't love Valentine's Day, February. There's nothing like real significant, I guess, besides your birthday in February. So February 15th has really no ties to us. And I was actually talking to her about that. And I was like, maybe it's like the days that your sisters didn't have dance or what. And she said, no, Taylor, she said, it's not hunting season. So I remember that, we talked, right after we got engaged, like most people do. And okay, when are we going to get married? And you were like, okay, we are not getting married during these months to these months because that's hunting season. And then we're not getting married from these months to these months because that's prep season. And I'm like, okay, so we have literally February to get married for 2 weeks. So we have only 2 weeks to get married. So let's find a Saturday. I remember that. And then even, as we were planning on having kids and everything, we talked about it, and you're like, okay, you have to get pregnant during these months so that I'll be home a little bit before hunting season starts to be able to see you guys and everything. So
and
definitely goes to show that our life literally revolves around hunting season.
And obviously there's stuff to hunt in February, but main deer season's over. Kind of we're fading out of late squirrel season. It's kind of getting cold. It's kind of like those months where there's stuff to hunt, but we could afford to take off for a week and go on a honeymoon and stuff mid-February. I wasn't going to be crushed. A lot of people love to get married in the spring, which wasn't happening for me because I'm going after crappie. And I, turkeys and all that stuff, not, haven't shot a turkey, not totally engulfed in that yet, but I was planning on going and everything. COVID and all that screwed that up. But I definitely wanted to crappie fish. I'm not going to miss, I'm not going to miss the spawn, all this. And then people love to get married in the fall. And there's no way in hell I was getting married in the fall. I would have postponed it for years. I would have. I'm not getting married in the fall. And it's so funny that, we've gotten, I know of 2 weddings now, I believe, might be more than that I've missed because of hunting season. And I always tell Taylor, we'll get an invitation or whatever in the mail. And I'm like, who in the hell gets married the opening weekend of shotgun season? And she's like, not everybody hunts. Not everybody realizes that. And I'm like, we can't even be friends. I don't even know why I'm getting invited to this wedding because I'm not going. I'm going to be in the woods.
Yeah, I remember that. I think one of your best friends got married sometime maybe opening weekend or something, and you had to be best man. And I remember you saying that why are these people getting married during hunting season? And we hadn't known each other that long then, and I was thinking okay, not everyone's life revolves around it. And I didn't even know then, what I was getting myself into. And that
I actually think I had shot actually I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure the middle buck up here, pretty sure I shot that like a couple weeks before they got married. So maybe that's, I obviously was going to be in the wedding because I was the best man, but I probably went hunting the next day, honestly. And if I'm not in the wedding and he wasn't such a good buddy, like I would have been hunting. Like everyone knows, like I'm gonna miss Christmas. Like I'm gonna miss birthday stuff. Like I might come late or whatever, but when we wait all year for that. Obviously,
Right.
like if there's like some kind of emergency or whatever, but um, we plan the birthday parties, we plan the Christmas, we plan everything around it. Every week is planned when it comes to hunting season around this household.
Yes. To all of our friends and family that are, I guess, listening to this podcast, we love you all dearly, but it's kind of our livelihood. We have to have meat in the freezer. So
That's number one.
right. So what is your biggest goal for 2022 season?
Yeah, I mean, just I gotta film more. Definitely gotta film more and get more content out. And then I want to shoot a velvet buck. And my biggest goal, I guess, maybe not my biggest goal, but something I'm going to do more is be more mobile. Definitely going to be more mobile. I'd like to maybe hunt a different state this year. I kind of thought about, we've talked about maybe going to Montana, doing the pronghorn thing. I don't know. We'll have to see on dates, costs of tags and all that stuff. But yeah, I'd love to shoot something that I never hunted before. So either that or might try to travel this year. Kentucky's not really traveling to us. It's only 20 minutes away, and so is Illinois. But
yeah,
maybe Michigan. There's another podcaster, Brett Morris from Blue River Bowhunting. He's talked about maybe going to Michigan or Wisconsin, do some deer hunting there. But we'll see. I don't know. I'm kind of playing it by ear right now. I need to kind of get something locked in.
Brett's actually your internet girlfriend.
Yeah, Brett.
Yeah,
Shout out to Brett, Blue River Bowhunting, internet girlfriend, I guess. He's one of many, I guess.
Right. So, I know that we've talked a little bit about going out west or going to Montana and everything to hunt, but is there like one specific place that you have like on your bucket list as like a dream hunt?
Dream hunt. Definitely, it would have to be Alaska. I mean, I've never been to Alaska, but I'd love to go to Alaska and shoot a grizzly. I mean, it's the biggest thing around here. I know it intimidates a lot of people. A lot of people are scared of it. I don't really get scared of stuff like that. So it's not like a thing for me, but I don't know. I'd love to hunt and kill a grizzly and bring all that home. I definitely have it mounted, put in the house. I don't know if they're 12 feet or 17 feet tall or however big they are, but I don't care if the head has to stick out of the roof. We'll put some kind of clear bubble on top of the roof and get it in here. But definitely a grizzly bear hunt. That would be awesome. I don't know what that costs, but I do know there was a guy I did a podcast with earlier this week. It'd be coming up, but he's a pilot in Alaska. So I might have to get with him, find out what it's going to cost me to shoot a grizzly bear. I know he shot a black bear there, but I'm going after that grizzly. I want to hunt something that can hunt me back. You want to go?
No.
No? All right.
I don't know,
I'm on my own, I guess.
I don't know. Maybe I would. I mean, I love to go hunting with you, and I jump at every opportunity, but maybe this is one I would sit out on. I don't know. It sounds so scary to me, but I don't know. Maybe you can go the first one, and if you survive, maybe I'll go the second time.
Man, that honestly, like, if that bear killed me, like, not that I want to die or anything, but that might be a good way to go. It'd be a good legacy to have. Like, I was out hunting and got eaten by a grizzly. Like, I don't know if I definitely wouldn't be mad at the bear. Like, it's so much better than like dying in a car wreck or like, I don't know, like getting cancer or something. Like, dude, that would be such a cool thing. Like, grandpa died hunting grizzly bears. I don't know. Like, if I had to pick, I guess that would maybe be a good way.
Well, I'm hoping that's not the story I have to tell. So as far as introducing Boone into the woods, which is our son, um, is there like what are you looking forward to most? Is there anything that you are looking forward to most, but also kind of scares you, or anything like that?
I mean, teaching him everything I know, like I've learned a ton of stuff. Of course, my dad taught me stuff, and I've learned stuff through friends and stuff. But I put all that kind of together, so hopefully now he doesn't have to go down the spider web trying to find all this information. He can kind of take everything that I know and kind of um, pass it down to him. Maybe he won't have to research as hard, and maybe things will change a million times, and he will have to research as hard. I don't know, but um, hopefully he can listen to this podcast when he's 40, because you know it would be super cool. I've always thought this, like, um, if I could listen to my great grandpa or something, or see videos of my great grandpa back in the 1800s, like of him on a podcast and kind of like what's going through his head, or watching him like out shooting deer like on video, that would be so cool. So it's going to be interesting to see like what stuff's like in 100 years when everybody can go back and watch everything that we've documented. So for me, like, it's super important to like kind of document his journey, because my journey wasn't like documented when I was a kid. Like, I'd love to have his first squirrel hunt, his first bow kill, his first squirrel kill, his first kill ever, whatever, like on film. Like, that's probably my main thing. Like, I don't even like if I take him hunting, like it's about him hunting. I just kind of want to be behind the camera and kind of document, so he can have that stuff when he's older. It'd be super cool to show like his great grandkids, like, look at all this footage of me like back in 20, I don't know, let's see, it's 2022, 2030 of me like shooting my first deer. I don't know. I plan to do a lot of filming with him. So hopefully he'll take to it. His name is Boone, after Daniel Boone, which is way down the bloodline, but related to me by marriage. So that's kind of where he got his name, for anybody wondering. He's after Daniel Boone.
Mhm. So I guess last question, would you say that as far as filming, would you rather hunt and have someone film you, or would you rather film and film someone hunting?
So usually, I mean, meat's number one to me. So it's very important that somebody, either you or I, kills something, kills deer mostly, for the freezer. But if, let's just say in general, like if I wasn't worried about me, maybe we bought it from the store, maybe we're stocked up, like I definitely rather be behind the camera. I think I enjoy the being behind the camera, getting the right angles, kind of documenting the whole story, and then being able to bring it back all here and jumble it all together and make a story out of it. So yeah, I definitely, if you want to hunt this year and me just be behind the camera, I'd be more than happy. I talked with Brett, again, Brett from Blue River Bowhunting, about this quite a bit. He's like, we should link up and hunt. Like, I'll film you. And I'm like, wait, no. Like, we'll hunt together and I'll film you. And he's kind of like in the same boat, because he likes to film and tell that whole story. I think we just both probably like to be creative. So
Yeah.
yeah, I want to film more. Maybe I need to find people that hate filming or don't want anything to do with it to hunt with, because I like the documenting and all that stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think that that will be something that, Boone, and if we have any other children, will really enjoy, is that, that they'll have their first hunts, or, memorable things, not only in their brain for them to remember, but also, on film for them to show their wives, or, whatever it is, or future kids or whatever. So I
Yeah,
really think that's neat.
it'll be cool to look back and be like, well, we'll probably film it and I'll edit it and I'll throw it up on YouTube and I'll be like, man, this looks so good. And then like in 2060, we'll be like, good God, why is that footage so bad? And why was I so bad at editing? So yeah, that'll be interesting to watch and look back on and see. But Yeah, it's cool. I like documenting everything. I try to post as much as I can on social. Not so much like, I mean, obviously I want people to watch my show, but a lot about social and stuff too is I can go down to my Instagram whenever I started my Instagram, or my Facebook from back in the days before I was even doing a podcast or Hunt the Wild stuff. I can go back and look at, that frog that I took a picture of, um, when that game warden stopped me, or stuff. I think for me, it's always just been about, it's not that I don't want to like live in the moment and everything, because I like to be able to kind of fully immerse myself, but it's fun to look back and kind of see how you've grown as a hunter, and definitely how your content looks different. Back then, like when I was taking photos in 2013, they look so bad. Like it makes me sick when I look at them, but I'm glad that I took them, because it's better to have something than it is to have like nothing.
Yeah, I agree for sure.
All right. You got any more questions for me? It's definitely been a change of pace. I'm so used to kind of sitting back and listening. I'm not used to kind of getting thirsty. I don't know, not used to talking this much.
No, I think that's it. I think that's all I have. I had a lot of fun, and I think that this was very informative for listeners, and definitely feel like, we could do it again in a couple of months or something as time goes on, and, you learn more about your 2022 season as it kind of rolls around, and, kind of play off of that and see, if we have any more questions or anything that the listeners, have kind of wanted to know. We can definitely touch back on that and get you back on here as the interviewee and me as the interviewer, and do it all again.
Yeah, guys, if you guys ever have any questions or something you want to know, you can always message me on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok, whatever. Go Wild. I check them all, so get a hold of me, and we'll talk hunting or whatever you want to know. If you want to know what my favorite drink is, or why I'm always holding this cup in my hand drinking tea, it's because it's got a lot of caffeine in it. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. Just hit me up on there and ask me questions, because I'm an open book. This is our real life. So what we do, none of this stuff is like staged or anything. So we live and breathe hunting. So all right, guys, I'm gonna get out of here. Me and Taylor are gonna get out of here. It's getting late. We got to get in bed. But yeah, we'll catch up with you on the next episode. See you guys. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Hunt the Wild podcast. If you enjoyed the show and it's brought you some sort of value, I'd love if you could give me a rating and a review. Just a few seconds of your time can help me better understand the type of content you all enjoy, and it would mean the world to me to hear from all of you.